Good morning.
Morning.
Glad the microphone works. Doug told me specifically not to pull on the cord, and so when I stood up to sing the hymn a few minutes ago, it dropped straight down and pulled on that cord real good. But as Keeley said, David's been talking about Christmas movies. And I don't know about you guys, I've enjoyed it a lot. Christmas movies are some of my favorite things. While talking with Doug before the sermon, I wondered how many Christmas movies are there? And Google told me, whether Google's telling me the truth or not, the low count is 700. And if you count into the global world and into the other movies and other places, it might get up to over 2,000 Christmas movies, which would make a full December if you wanted to watch all of them. You'd probably have to learn a couple different languages while you're at it as well. And that doesn't go into Christmas episodes of TV shows. You know, or even just those old shorts. One of my favorite Christmas things is the Tom and Jerry, like the old Tom and Jerry. There's one where Tom locks Jerry out in the cold, and it came upon a midnight clear, and Tom's just looking out the window, just so sad that he locked that poor little mousey out there, and then they come in and they share Christmas cheer together. So Christmas shows, Christmas TV, Christmas movies are ubiquitous to our times. And so David said, why don't you do Elf? And I said, okay, I'll do Elf. But a secret is that Elf's not my favorite Christmas movie. I mean, it is not. I've watched it, counting the one time that I watched it to prep for the sermon, 3 times. And the other 2 times were by accident. Part of it is because of this man here on the picture, Will Ferrell. His brand of comedy is what I call embarrassment comedy, awkward comedy, just a little bit like left of normal. And you'd look at me and say, well, isn't that right up your boat? Or yeah, I'm like, kind of when everybody's in on it. But his is, it's like, look at that guy, he's weird. You know, and that's been the story of my life, and I can't really find as much humor out of it. And so I was like, well, maybe, I'm not sure that Elf really qualifies. And I went back and I watched it, and I'm grateful to say that I was wrong. And Elf definitely fits the qualities of a Christmas movie. Now, again, like the movie does have some things in it that I feel are not quite Christmassy. There's a lot of ridicule. There's a lot of awkward humor. There's that scene where he met this girl the day before, and he follows her into the girl's bathroom and sings with her while she's in the shower. That's not exactly Christmassy. That is not something I recommend you try out with somebody you've just met, either male or female. But there are other elements of the movie that really hit into it, which kind of led me, if you'll go ahead, Mr. Doug. So again, here we've got Elf, and again, Will Ferrell does a marvelous job in this movie. Because he plays a 30-year-old man who believes in his heart of hearts that he is an elf. He was abandoned, he ends up in an orphanage. And sneaks into Santa's sack of toys and gets taken back to Christmas, as is wont to happen on Christmas Eve, and is raised by elves and believes he's an elf, even though he is at least twice as tall as everybody else there in the entirety of the North Pole. But again, it has cruder elements. There's a scene where he's in New York and he's just gotten there, and he looks, and people have stuck gum on the railing outside of the subway. And he just starts pulling pieces off and chewing them because it's free candy. And he's lived in a place where everything's been nice. And I'm like, not really Christmassy. But again, there's ridicule, there's shame. If you'll go on, Mr. Doug. And it made me think, what makes a Christmas movie a Christmas movie? And so for the first question, go ahead, Doug. Does it have to happen during the holidays? Because there's a lot of movies that could make it there. I mean, White Christmas, that's when Edmund was a young boy, he would call it the Army Man Christmas movie. Because the big climax of the movie has everybody in their uniforms to meet the general again. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, I mean, that is just Christmas all the way. Die Hard happens on Christmas Eve. You know, is that a Christmas movie? I mean, there's even like Ho 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 is mentioned at least once in there. And then one of my favorites is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, done by Rankin Bass. Rankin Bass alone has about a dozen Christmas movies. Your mileage may vary on how good those are. Some of them you can watch once and say, I can see why that one didn't make it to the Christmas classics list. Go ahead, Doug. Does just having Santa in it qualify as a Christmas movie? You know, Silent Night, Deadly Night, that's not exactly the Christmas spirit where Santa goes on a rampage. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. If you watch the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version of that movie, you will never stop laughing. And that's about the only way you can stomach that movie. Ralphie meets Santa in, A Christmas Story. Does that one qualify? He meets Santa Claus. Go ahead. Does it have to come on the Hallmark Channel? Because they have made enough Christmas movies to stuff your stocking and leave your top drawer full too. But let's look at Elf. Now again, Buddy, he grows up in an orphanage. Well, he's born in an orphanage, and while he's just barely toddling is when he falls into Santa's sack of toys and goes up to the North Pole. He is raised by Bob Newhart, which, if you can get raised by any of the celebrities in Hollywood, Bob Newhart would probably be the best one. Grows up believing he's an elf, grows up with a lot of elf characteristics, finds out that he is human due to his elfin failings. Like he only makes 85 Etch-a-Sketches in an afternoon, which puts him about 500 behind the quota for the day. Because the elves they can really make those toys, that sort of thing. And Santa finally, and Bob Newhart, they finally break the news to him that his dad is human, and he's not an elf. And the worst part is his dad is on the naughty list. And so Buddy, who is Will Ferrell's character, he gets up and he travels to New York to find his dad. And to kind of Reader's Digest condensed version, the whole story, he goes to New York through a lot of awkward interfaces and a lot of awkward things. He gets his dad fired. He makes people rediscover the meaning of Christmas and gets his dad a new and better job at the end of the movie. But the big thing is Buddy, when he shows up in New York, he is full of Christmas cheer. I mean, he is so exuberant, so jolly, so happy. There's one scene where he gets thrown out of Gimbals, comes back, and they said, I thought you weren't allowed here. So, we had a disagreement yesterday, but they just gave me a restraining order, so it all worked out. He's just happy and doesn't, he's a little oblivious. And again, Will Ferrell does a great job of playing an innocent 30-year-old doing these things, because it could have really come off as super duper weird instead of just weird. But Buddy goes and he meets his dad, who's a book publisher. He works in a book publishing company, and his dad takes him back to his apartment, and they get ready to have a meal together. And this is going to be our first clip, and you'll see everybody looks at Buddy like he's a weirdo, which you should. Go ahead, Doug, with our first clip. So again, you can kind of see awkward, shock value, weirdness, three main keys to this movie. And you can see that Buddy is cheerful. You can see the disdain in everybody's eyes as they look at him. And I seriously doubt that a belch will ever figure again into a sermon later on. But that's still an impressive one. But Buddy is looked at as a weirdo by his family. His father, his stepmother, his stepbrother who was sitting there looking at him and finishes the scene. He's like, "You are so weird." But Buddy doesn't let the jubilation leave his system. He continues to hold fast to his Christmas cheer, to what he believes in, to what he knows is true, and that Christmas is a jolly time that you share with your family and you love your family to be with them. Now, it doesn't always get reciprocated, but eventually, Buddy starts winning people over. And, he wins people over when he works at his dad's office for a little while. He works down in the mailroom with them where he learns you can put syrup in coffee. For those of you who know, you know. And it makes for a marvelous time. But again, he's still a bit weird, and it takes a little bit for the Christmas cheer to really start to rub off and for other people to see what he sees and begin to believe in Buddy and believe what he says might be true. And so I got another scene for us. It's a little scene where he's with his stepbrother and they're walking through the park after a school day, and you can see where the stepbrother starts to believe in Buddy. So let's go with the second clip. He starts to believe. And that's kind of the center of all the Christmas movies. When we looked at Miracle on 34th Street, Kris Kringle shows up, and a lot of people say he's a weird old man who thinks he's Santa Claus. He really kind of needs to be psychologically evaluated. He needs to kind of be put away, but then they start to see. Doris Walker and her daughter both start to see maybe what he's telling us is the truth. And they go from cynical disbelief to maybe. When the Grinch gets up onto the mountain and he's about to toss all those toys over the edge, he's waiting for people to cry, to hear lamentations, to get that schadenfreude of somebody else suffering. But when he hears the Who's singing, he's like, well, maybe there's something about Christmas that I don't get. Maybe there's something else. And he starts to believe. When George Bailey is confronted by an angel, he's like, you weirdo, what kind of old-timey underwear are you wearing? That sort of thing. He's like, I don't want to talk to you. But then as things happen, he starts to believe. And so Buddy's brother He's starting to believe that Christmas is something else. You know, they get into that snowball fight, and I don't know about you, I'd love to have had Buddy on my team on any snowball fight. Anybody who can throw a half dozen snowballs in half a second is going to win. But the brother begins to believe in Buddy, and he begins to believe in the Christmas spirit again, and he begins to believe that things might improve. Because again, nobody's happy when Buddy shows up. Even before he was there, they were grumpy. James Caan, who plays Buddy's dad, is a phenomenal actor. If you've ever seen the old Godfather movies, he plays Sonny Corleone, won an Academy Award for playing the roughest, meanest gangster-type fellow you have ever seen. And here he is playing the dad of Will Ferrell, which if you can go watch some interviews with Will Ferrell about how James Caan acted during the movie and how much he did not believe until after he saw the whole movie completed that it was going to be any good. It kind of fits into the whole thing too, but that's another rabbit trail that we won't go chasing after. But eventually the movie, like in all the Christmas movies, they all hit this big climax of belief, where they have this, for lack of a better word, a conversion to where they go from, I don't believe that Kris Kringle is really Santa Claus. I don't believe that there's anything to this Christmas if you're the Grinch. I don't believe that I've made any sort of difference if you're George Bailey, to where, you know what? I've been looking at this the wrong way all my life. And this comes for Buddy's daddy and for the majority of the New Yorkers in the movie, which again, you see all these different characters that pop up in there. But Santa's sleigh crashes in Central Park. Now, because of a lack of belief in the Christmas spirit, the sleigh had been run on a jet engine for years. And so the engine conks out, it crashes. Buddy just happens to have been trained on how to fix this jet engine, so he runs to Central Park, fixes it up. He's working with Santa Claus while the Central Park Rangers are trying to bust Santa and put him in jail. And when he asks Santa, it's like, Santa, why are they after us? He's like, I put them on the naughty list once and they have never forgiven me. And so they make a good esoteric bad guy. But again, Buddy puts the sled together, he gets the engine back on, they take off, and as they're flying, the engine clips a statue and gets knocked completely off the sled, and so they are left powerless. And the only thing that can get Santa back on track and get to delivering his presents and get back into the air is for enough people to believe in and exhibit a Christmas spirit. And so for our last little clip, we're going to see the Christmas spirit come back in to the Central Park watchers who are all there for the spectacle. Go ahead, Mr. Doug. So again, the Christmas spirit pops up. You know, the engine's gone, they're wrecking, and it actually stopped where we wanted to start, so we'll get to that in just a second. I'll do some filler time. But Santa's wrecked. He's now in Central Park with nothing but Christmas spirit that can lift him off. So can we hit that last little bit from 2 minutes on? Okay, yeah. Don't worry, we've only got about 3 more hours before I finish that. So. Okay, no worries about it. All right, but they get the sled up and in the air. And it flies over the heads of everyone. And in fact, the nice climax is James Caan. It's only when he starts singing that the sled takes off. And Santa and all the reindeer fly over it, which luckily doesn't get caught on camera because that would be good enough stuff for everybody to see and to believe. But it's this recentering where everyone there who experiences the magic of Christmas, they begin to believe again. That's what makes a Christmas movie a Christmas movie. It's when somebody turns from it's all this commercialism that makes Christmas. Oh, I've got to have the absolute perfect Christmas. If you watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Clark Griswold is in this method where he wants his Christmas to be perfect, the most lights, the most presents, the best dinner, and the most fun. And it's only when he lets go of what he thinks it's going to be and says, look, there's the Christmas star. That's all I really needed. You know, which is surprising from National Lampoon's. And again, if you'll go to the next one, you see there you see James Caan. That's where he sees Santa's sleigh fly right over his head. And he goes, holy cow, in his brain. But he's right. And he remembers what Christmas is about. And then, you know, he goes on to have a good career where he builds, he's much nicer, he's kinder, his child is happy, both children, Buddy and his stepson. And his family is happier because he remembers it's the love and the fellowship and it's family that Christmas is about. If you go to the next one, the most famous, in my opinion, Christmas show is the Peanuts one, the Charlie Brown Christmas. And it has the most quintessential remembering what Christmas is all about. When Linus comes out and he gives from Luke the speech. And where he says, and the angel said unto them, fear not. One thing that I had never noticed until I attended my father's church last week and the pastor there spoke on it. He lets go of his blanket. The only time lets go of his security blanket when he says, fear not. And, you know, I'd watched that movie 1,000,000 times and had never noticed that. But it's when they say, this is what everybody says Christmas is about. But remember, it's this. This is what everybody says life is about. But remember, it's this. You know, one of the other famous Christmas movies or Christmas stories is about Ebenezer Scrooge. And if there isn't any better example of a recentering, I don't know what it is. But again, each of our movies, you know, Kris Kringle, when he gets that letter from Doris and her daughter about we believe in you, he doesn't care if he goes to jail at that point. That's what he wanted. He wanted them to remember and to believe again. When the Grinch picks up the sled and brings everything down into Whoville, I mean, the Who's could have thrown him in jail because, I mean, he just robbed every house from everything. But they remember it's Christmas, and he becomes, instead of the outcast, he becomes a member of Whoville. And that's what Christmas is about. When George Bailey sees all the good that he has done in his life that he felt he had squandered, he realizes that all the stuff that he wanted to do was not nearly as valuable as all the stuff he had done. And again, when Buddy gets his father to believe in Christmas and to believe in goodness again, that's the heart of Elf. And as much as the awkwardness makes me kind of cringe and let's see if is there any baseball on or something like that. Elf does qualify as a good Christmas movie. The biggest thing for me is that Buddy never stopped believing. All the people who ridiculed him, all the people who disdained him, he held steadfast to his Christmas cheer, didn't care. Because sometimes we need a buddy to help us figure things out. Sometimes we can be Buddy. Sometimes we're the Grinch. Sometimes we're Ebenezer. Sometimes we're Kris Kringle. Sometimes we're the Who's down in Whoville. And the big thing is finding what you can do to bring Christmas back. Now, I did pick two scriptures. One of them is from Paul when he talked to the Romans. And this is about being a buddy, if you can forgive the stretch. How then will they call on him whom they have not believed? If you go ahead, Doug, I think I've got this one, the next slide. Yeah. How then will they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? Be Buddy. Go out and speak. Let your light be up high so that people can see your Christmas cheer, your Christian cheer. And keep your eyes on God so you don't forget what Christmas cheer is, what Christian cheer is. Jesus, in his commission as he is leaving the disciples at the end of Mark, says, "Go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned." Jesus told us to go out, to be Buddy, to preach, to let people know, to let people hear. So again, hold up your Christmas spirit. Love those even when they don't seem to love you back. Put a little syrup in your coffee. And love God with every bit of yourself.